Hello everyone, my name is Frederick Lopez, and as you may know, I am a film fanatic. Today happens to be my 28th birthday. Yeah, that's 2 years away from being 30 years old. I'm an aspiring writer, actor, and filmmaker, and even though I made a couple of short films, I haven't made anything mainstream. Yet. But I am a huge fan of movies. Ever since I was a child, I was filled with imagination and wonder, and films were always an escape from the real world. It always brought an illusion of an imaginary world, and there's something so special about seeing films in theaters, seeing the silver screen, and seeing worlds that you would not normally see in the real world. And recently, a man named Sean Chandler made a video going over his favorite films each year he's been alive. Vaters did it. A man before them did it a year earlier named Jason Evans, and it was even like a trend going on around on Facebook. Well, I just recently got off of Facebook, went on YouTube, and I saw that on Sean Chandler's channel. Totally check out those guys. They have an awesome YouTube channel. Check them out. Anyway, a couple of you were asking what are some of my favorite films. I shared a list of films that inspired me to be a filmmaker, but I haven't shared my favorite films. And I thought that was such a neat idea that Sean Chandler did, going over his favorite film each year. Sometimes you think there's not that many great films around, and you really kind of reflect on other years, and you're like, you know what? That was a damn good year for movies. And it's hard. It was hard. There's only one tie on this list. So, reflecting upon my 28 years in this earth, here's my first favorite movie. Starting at 1991 is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This is arguably one of James Cameron's best films and one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's best films. I love this sequel. I was originally going to choose Hook for this year. I love that movie, but Terminator 2 just totally revolutionized the action genre and film industry. Who could forget the T-1000? And then Sarah Connor, played brilliantly by Linda Hamilton, Edward Furlong as John Connor. The effects, the emotion. This film has heart, action, and spectacle. It has everything, and it is probably my favorite film from 1991. I love Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I love the first Terminator, but going on the years I was born, I love this. And it was a crazy year when I was born. Silence of the Lambs came out the day I was born, and Gonna Make You Sweat by C+C Music Factory was a #1 hit on the music charts. Yeah, Terminator 2 Judgment Day still stands the test of time, even over the other Terminator sequels. There's a reason why they should have ended it with Judgment Day, because it is one of the best films ever made. Hasta la vista, baby. After that, in 1992, I love Unforgiven, I love Batman Returns, but for my favorite film, it would have to be The Mighty Ducks. That's right, quack, 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 Mr. Ducksworth. Coach Bombay with Emilio Estevez. I love that. Charlie, Fulton Reed, the whole Mighty Ducks. Oh my God, who could forget the Flying V? Lane Smith as the other coach. Bombay's old coach, Hans. Such a great sports film. It really is, and was one of the best hockey films. It seriously is. I love the Mighty Ducks. And yeah, they end up winning at the end, and I love that because everything's going against them. And sometimes it's the underdog that surprises everyone. But also, Bombay has a life lesson. He's a lawyer. He's really high on the work life, and he kind of comes back down to earth, goes back to his roots of his hockey career. And he befriends Charlie and the team, and I love it. I love the ending where it has "We are the champions and we will rock you." Oh my God, Mighty Ducks is one of my favorite sports films and one of my favorite Disney films, and it's definitely my favorite film of 1992. After that, in 1993, is Jurassic Park. Now, this was hard because I almost put Last Action Hero. That was a film I really loved watching growing up, but Jurassic Park was just my childhood with dinosaurs coming to life. And just like Terminator 2, this film still stands the test of time and looks leaps and bounds better than any of the other Jurassic Park films of recent memory. I love Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, his whole chaos theory, the effects of the T-Rex frightening, and then the Velociraptors. As before they were pets, they were deadly. I love Jurassic Park. It's probably one of my favorite films of the 90s and one of my favorite films growing up. I remember having the toys and everything. Yeah, it was scary. That little creature. Oh my God. I don't want to think about it, but I still love that ending with the T-Rex. After that, in 1994, my favorite film is The Lion King. Oh my God. Hamlet brought to cartoon animation from Disney. The soundtrack, Elton John, Hans Zimmer, the voices of James Earl Jones, Jeremy Irons, Matthew Broderick, young Jonathan Taylor Thomas. It'll be interesting to see how the new remake will be, but I love this. Probably the most violent G movie I ever saw in my life. But I think this was the first film I saw in theaters, but I don't remember it. So technically this is the first film I saw in theaters, even though I don't remember. Remember the Burger King toys that had the little cards and everything, but I love it. I love Simba wanting to be king, wanting to grow up like many children, but then he faces the hard reality of death. His father gets betrayed by his brother Scar, Mufasa's dead, the stampede, that whole journey of Timon and Pumbaa, him growing up and taking back his kingdom. Yes, before anybody talks about Black Panther and Aquaman, Lion King and Hamlet did it first. But yeah, I love this movie. This is a Disney classic, and it's just epic in every possible way. One of the most astonishing animated films ever made. The past hurts, but you can either run from it or learn from it. Hakuna Matata. It means no worries for the rest of your days. After that, in 1995, there's so many great movies that year. Die Hard with a Vengeance. Oh man. Toy Story. And Batman Forever. Batman Forever makes my favorite film in 1995. That was the movie for me that year. I saw it in theaters. I ran outside the theater like Batman and Robin, even dressed up as Batman for Halloween. Yeah, that was my movie. As a Batman fan, I used to watch the original '89 film on VHS, and I love that film. Despite its campiness, despite its silliness, it's kind of dated now in a '90s way, but I love it. Val Kilmer, Nicole Kidman, Chris O'Donnell, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, the soundtrack, Kiss from a Rose by Seal, Hold Me Through Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me by U2. It gets lumped in with Batman and Robin, but Batman Forever is actually quite a bit of a darker film, and I love Batman Forever. That is definitely just fun. It's a comic book come to life. It's the first time we saw Wayne Enterprises, Arkham Asylum. And yeah, I think Val Kilmer's very underrated in the role. Sure, his Bruce Wayne looks different, but under the cowl, he reminds me just like Michael Keaton. I love Batman Forever. It's a guilty pleasure, and it's my favorite film of 1995. After that, for 1996, is Independence Day. Now, I love Star Trek First Contact, Mission Impossible, but Independence Day is just an awesome movie. I remember my brother and dad went to go see this on opening day, and I wanted to go with them. They wouldn't take me, so the next day, my brother took me on July 3rd, and it was awesome. This is why every 90s kid loves Will Smith besides Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now that's what I call Close Encounter. I love that. Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, he has that amazing speech, but the effects, practical effects, Roland Emmerich did it, and it was from the people who did Stargate. I love the effects, practical effects. I don't want to think about that sequel. I actually still haven't seen Independence Day Resurgence. I don't know anybody in the right mind thinking that sequel could live up to this one without Will Smith. They're out of their freaking mind if they thought the sequel was going to be half as good as the first film without Will Smith. Let's not forget Randy Quaid. Yeah, shit happens. Buildings, cities get destroyed. You have Data there. Release me. Release me. And then there's that whole part with like Bill Pullman's like, can there be peace? And he's like, no peace. Craziness, I know, but yeah, they had It's the End of the World as We Know It by R.E.M. play. I remember the promos, they had the Super Bowl trailer. This movie was just epic. They even had that VHS case that was like motion, like a little lithograph. I love that. This film was just 1996. In a nutshell. After that, in 1997, is another Will Smith film called Men in Black. He's going to make this look good, and it is a good film. Other films that I almost picked were Good Will Hunting, George of the Jungle, Lost World Jurassic Park, Titanic, but Men in Black holds a special place in my heart. That was just the go-to movie that year. Tommy Lee Jones, Will Smith, Vincent D'Onofrio, oh my god, Linda Florentino. And then his music video and theme for Men in Black was great. Danny Elfman as the director of The Addams Family. I love Men in Black. And it's weird because when I went to go see this, everybody thought it was going to be a serious film like Independence Day, and it turned out to be a comedy. Also based on a comic book not many people know. I love it. Men in Black is just a thrill ride from beginning to end, and yeah, it's aliens, it's a Men in Black. I love the talking dog, I like the freaking cockroach battle. I love it when Will Smith starts stepping on, I was like, this must be your aunt, that must be your uncle. That whole ending got you excited. It was emotional with Tommy Lee Jones, but it was exciting seeing where it could have gone in the future. And it's just sad that the sequels didn't quite live up to the awesomeness of the original film. But yeah, Men in Black's my favorite film in '97. For the year of 1998, it's pretty hard for me. I love Small Soldiers. I love Godzilla. Oh man, so many great films in 1998. So I had to go with Lethal Weapon 4 because that really was the film I loved in 1998. I just got into Saturday Night Fever that year. I got into Mad Max, and then I got into Lethal Weapon. They re-released the first 3 films on VHS. They had a director's cut, but I ended up getting the original versions because I was kind of stickler on cases. I wanted to look like the old cases. But I saw the Lethal Weapon films and was eagerly awaiting this film. I love it with Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Rene Russo, Chris Rock, Joe Pesci. The gang's all here, and you have Jet Li, one of the best villains and just most epic fights at the end of Lethal Weapon. I love 3, but Lethal Weapon 4 is really a good ending that just went all out. And it was just an emotional ride. I loved it. And the Pontiac GM looked so new when that came out. I remember we rented it at Hollywood Video. It was back when you only had 2-day rentals on new rentals. Yes, kids, before Netflix, you actually had to go to a video store and rent something. And it wasn't a DVD, it was a video cassette, a VHS. Anyway, I loved it. Riggs had short hair, and yeah, it's before Mel Gibson and all the scandals he had. So, yeah, it was a different time back then, but as a kid, I loved watching that movie, and my mom got it for me previously viewed at Hollywood Video, and I just worshipped that VHS, having all 4 Lethal Weapons on VHS. Yeah, I love it. The most epic buddy cop series of all time. After that, for the year of 1999, there was a couple of good films I liked from that year, like Pokemon the first movie, Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, but one takes the cake, and that is The Matrix, the original Matrix. It's sad because the way the sequels are viewed, I think it kind of affects and undermines the greatness of that first film. I love the first Matrix. I did not see this in theaters. My brother lived in Pennsylvania at the time. I was in Texas. It was my mother and I, and we got chicken from Golden Chick, and he brought over the VHS of The Matrix, and that film changed my life. We saw nothing like that before in film, and it was just amazing. Even the whole dodge the bullet scene was just phenomenal. You're like, oh my god, that's so awesome. Kind of like the Wolverine Statue of Liberty scene in X-Men, but yeah, I love The Matrix. It was a bit confusing for me at the time, but I loved it. I love everything about Neo, how it's like a virtual world, the red pill, the blue pill, and then ultimately to Neo becoming the one and basically saving Morpheus and fighting the agents. Such an awesome science fiction action film. The fighting was very well done, and yeah, that film's about to turn 20 next month, and it still is phenomenal and better than some movies this past decade. There's a reason why The Matrix is one of the most influential films of all time. Every film in the next decade tried to mimic The Matrix. You can't believe it. All the slow-mo they did was all from Matrix. And yeah, I love it. The people who did the stunts on this did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and later Into the Badlands on AMC. And The Matrix is just one of my favorite films to end off the 20th century before we went to the 21st century. I love The Matrix. Who could forget that ending with Rage Against the Machine and Neo flying? That was the coolest thing ever. For the year of 2000, it was very hard for me to choose. I love Mission Impossible 2. I love the first X-Men. I even love Charlie's Angels. But there was only one film that I feel is very underrated that was probably my favorite film in retrospect, and that is Titan A.E. I love this animated film. Matt Damon, Bill Pullman, Drew Barrymore, Janine Garofalo, John Leguizamo, Nathan Lane. Oh man, this film is amazing with a mixture of CGI and animation done by DreamWorks and 20th Century Fox. I remember seeing the promos for it. Had a Higher by Creed play. Oh man, Cosmic Castaway. Gonna Fly Now. I love the soundtrack. I love the design of that ship. And Earth blows up. They destroy Earth in the opening of the movie. That's pretty damn ballsy for an animated film. And it was really one that was more for adults. I loved it. I saw this and X-Men back to back 2 consecutive days with my father in theaters, and those were 2 big movies, and Titan A.E. was the one I used to watch on VHS over and over and over, and it definitely needs a Blu-ray release. I love it. It's about them basically making another Earth and fighting the Dredge, these like alien entities that are basically pure energy. I love it. It's an underrated science fiction film, and if you've never seen it, totally check it out. It's probably my favorite film from 2000, most definitely. After that, in 2001, is The Mummy Returns. I love The Mummy from 1999, and I didn't know they were making The Mummy Returns until like 2 weeks before it came out. You see, before YouTube and stuff and before internet spoilers, you would find out stuff either by seeing a trailer in the movies, seeing a movie poster in the theater, or watching TV and seeing a TV spot, and that's what happened one night. After Toonami, I saw a Mummy Returns TV spot, and I was like, what? They're making a sequel? Whoa! I love it. Action-oriented. Rachel Weisz as Evie, I have to admit, that's probably my first like film crush. Yeah, I like Sophia Loren. I like some other people, Cameron Diaz in The Mask, but Rachel Weisz is probably like my first crush on the silver screen in that film, and in more particular, the fight sequence there. Yeah. But I love Brendan Fraser. I love Art F. Bay. Very different film. I love that Rick and Evie have a child. The Scorpion King. This is The Rock's first movie before he was Dwayne Johnson. This is after coming out of the WWF. I mean, the WWE. Wow, that really tells you how old I am. Yeah, I love The Mummy Returns, even if it is a bit like Stargate with the Anubis Warriors at the end, and you have a CG rock scorpion monster. I still love the movie. It is action-adventure at its purest form. 2002 is an exciting year. I love Spider-Man, but my favorite film was Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones. That was my film. I got trading cards. I subscribed to the Star Wars magazine. I even got marshmallow cereal from Episode 2. And I think my brother and I saw that film at least like maybe 7 to 8 times that summer. Seriously, Attack of the Clones is my film. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Before Disney, pre-Disney. But that was a great film, seeing an adult Anakin, seeing it feel more like Star Wars than The Phantom Menace. And I loved The Phantom Menace when I was growing up. The whole romance with Anakin Padme, the hints to the dark side, Obi-Wan, the start of the Clone Wars, Jango Fett, oh my god, John Williams' score, and let's not forget Yoda wielding a lightsaber for the first time. Oh my god, that was the most epic, epic scene. And yeah, my mom surprised my brother and I with tickets on opening day, and I loved it. I remember seeing the Matrix Reloaded Revolutions teaser before the start of Attack of the Clones, and that was one of the happiest days of my life, and definitely it's my film of 2002. After that, for 2003, I have a lot of favorite films from 2003. Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions, Last Samurai, Daredevil, Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Oh man, so many films, but one film remains my favorite out of all of those, and that's X2 XMen United. I even collected the Dr. Pepper cans. I was such a huge fan of the first one. I was excited to see a sequel, and they went all out on that second one. That's still one of the best X-Men films. Who could forget Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Mystique, Magneto actually teaming up with the X-Men to go after Stryker? Man, this movie had everything from beginning to end, and then John Ottman's X2 score, that dun 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 dun. Oh, the Lady Deathstrike against Wolverine. That was such a crazy fight that topped the Mystique Wolverine fight from the first film. Unfortunately, we'll never have a proper X-Men 3, but I have to say, at the time, that was awesome. There wasn't many comic book films, and there wasn't many comic book films that were done right. X2 was one of them, and that just went all out and showed you what a comic book movie could be. It surpassed everything that was set up in the first X-Men and really paid off a lot of the buildup from the first film, and I love it. 2004 was an interesting year. I love Spider-Man 2. I love The Punisher with Thomas Jane, but my favorite movie has to be Kill Bill Volume 2. I love the first Kill Bill, and I was going through a process of moving, but I remember seeing Kill Bill 2 on VHS. We were going to rent the DVD, and they were sold out, or rented out, should I say. And we rented the VHS, and I remember because it was the day before we found out my father had colon cancer. He's doing well now. He's all well. He got treated and everything, but it was a tough period in my life. We dealt with that, a recent move, all at once. And I was kind of struggling as a teenager, and I was kind of needing an escape. I listened to a lot of heavy metal, new metal. My film ideas got much darker, and Kill Bill 2 was one film that fitted that period in my life and really inspired me. I got into Tarantino. I was aware of Quentin Tarantino in his films, but I never saw him. So after Kill Bill 2, I saw Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs. I was on a Tarantino renaissance after Kill Bill 2. I love the first Kill Bill. I thought it was awesome, but 2 added so much with that whole Silhouette of Doom opening, a backstory. We actually get to see Bill. And it's much more complex. It's not your basic revenge story. It's actually a very tragic love story. And I just love it. I love that whole fight with Elle and Beatrix, the 5-point exploding heart technique. I also love Pao Mei in that film. So many great kung fu elements, but it was also a film that was very much a modern spaghetti western. And yeah, Kill Bill Volume 2 is probably my favorite film of 2004 that I needed at the time, and that also influenced me as a filmmaker. After that, for 2005, that was a really bad, abysmal year in film. There was crap that year. Like, there were some good movies, but really, nothing really good until Chronicles of Narnia and King Kong in like December. But before that, I had 2 films as my most favorite. One being Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, and the other being Batman Begins. Those are two films I love. One, I'm a Star Wars fan, and it was so great seeing the prequel trilogy come to a close and Star Wars end. Sure, it's an unconventional ending, but I always thought it should end with the two sons, and it did. It was perfect end. First Star Wars to be PG-13. We got to see the tragedy of the Jedi, the fall of Anakin Skywalker, and the rise of Darth Vader, and it was epic. All the prequels should have been like Revenge of the Sith. You could have not made Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, just made Revenge of the Sith, and it would have been perfect. I love it. Sure, it still feels a bit like Attack of the Clones at the beginning with General Grievous and Count Dooku, but when it gets back to Coruscant, it starts becoming a tragedy. And it's a tragedy what happened between Anakin and Padme, and I love that film, the fights, everything. I even played the video game before it came out that had movie clips. And then Batman Begins. Even as a child, I knew something was wrong with Batman and Robin. There was no Batman merchandise or anything for 8 years. So you see a lot of Batman merchandise and memorabilia in my room is because I was around during a time when there was no Batman, like none. A little bit of the animated series, and that was it. And thankfully, Christopher Nolan resurrected Batman with Batman Begins, the first film to get it right and to really be about Bruce Wayne / Batman. Christian Bale was amazing. Cillian Murphy, Liam Neeson. I love this film, and then you had Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman give it a bit of gravitas. Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard's score. Oh, Batman Begins was definitely the film of the summer, and who could forget that Joker card teaser at the end, like Batman Year One. I love that. That movie is what I needed as a Batman fan, and it also did something in Hollywood with reboots. Because of that, we had a reboot of Star Trek, Casino Royale, and then pretty much before you know it, everybody wants to reboot it or revitalize a franchise. And this really did it in the right way. This got Batman back to his basic core. It wasn't about making toys. There wasn't any nipples. No, he's the Dark Knight. And this showed the beginning of Batman, of why would a man put a batsuit on. Those are two of my favorite films of 2005. After that, at 2006 is The Departed. There's a lot of great films in 2006. I love Miami Vice. I love Casino Royale. But The Departed, man. That film was amazing. My mother and I saw that in theaters, and it's one of those movies where you know it's special. You're like, this is a damn good film. This is going to win Best Picture. This is a classic. We had that feeling like when you watch The Godfather for the first time, you're like, this is a special movie. Martin Scorsese should have gotten a Best Director's Academy Award much earlier, but he got an Oscar for this. Leo DiCaprio should have been nominated. It was a travesty he wasn't. Matt Damon's great. I love the whole cat and mouse with like undercover criminal inside the FBI and undercover police inside a criminal organization. Jack Nicholson was great. Martin Sheen, Mark Wahlberg. I know what you are, I know what you're not. You know, cop. Who could forget Shipping Off to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys? The soundtrack, the editing, everything was just so amazing. As a fan of crime films and even like Grand Theft Auto, it was like seeing some of those things come to life. And it was such a perfect modern crime film. And she's like, what do you want? He's like, cranberry juice. Gimme Shelter at the beginning by Rolling Stones. Oh man, such a modern crime classic and a modern American movie classic. The Departed is my favorite film of 2006. To see these two actors of this generation team up opposite one another. It was like seeing Robert De Niro and Al Pacino team up in Heat. For 2007 is Live Free or Die Hard. I love the first Transformers, but the movie for me that year was Live Free or Die Hard. That was such an awesome movie. Sure, it was PG-13. I didn't want a sequel to Die Hard. I just completed the Die Hard trilogy. Why did they keep adding stuff? Why? They took a different turn, and it was actually a modern Die Hard. Much better than A Good Day to Die Hard later on. I loved it. John McClane was an analog hero in a digital world. Computer hacking. Oh, Fire Cell, Kevin Smith's cameo, Timothy Olyphant and Maggie Q as the villains. So many great memorable lines. I love the whole action part with the truck in that jet sequence. And yeah, John McClane having a daughter played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I love that movie. That movie was great, and it actually felt like a Die Hard movie. It was nice seeing John McClane come back. Even though he is bald, it was nice seeing him come back. After that, for 2008, is The Dark Knight. That's a no-brainer. That was the film that year. That was such an amazing film. Heath Ledger, after passing away, that was kind of a big film. Him as a Joker, getting a posthumous Oscar. That really should have been the first film to be nominated as a superhero comic book film. It really should have. That and Logan. I'm sorry, but that not only should have been nominated, but it would have won it. That or Gran Torino were better than Slumdog Millionaire. I don't care what anybody says. The Dark Knight is just a great film. I wrote a 100-page essay over The Dark Knight. And I love everything about it. It's a modern fable of chaos and order with the Dark Knight versus the Joker, and then Harvey Dent slash Two-Face right at the center of that chaos and order. It's a crime film, and the type of film that's like Departed or Heat. Had a very 1970s Batman feel with a bit of the modern comics. And it really brought Batman to a mainstream audience. Even people who weren't fans of Batman loved that film. And yeah, that's just one of the greatest films made of the 21st century and one of the best, if not the best, comic book film ever made. After that, in 2009, you had Star Trek, you had Terminator Salvation, but an underrated film I liked from that year was Watchmen, both the theatrical and extended director's cut. I've been a Zack Snyder fan ever since Dawn of the Dead and 300, but Watchmen, I went in wanting to see an R-rated superhero film. I did not read the graphic novel. I read it later, and you know what? I actually had more respect for the movie after reading the graphic novel. A lot of people hated this. This is one film that people were just disgusted with when it came out. They're like, this was so violent. It was filthy. It wasn't the superhero film I wanted to see. I'm like, what the hell were you expecting? I went to go see it. I went in going to see an R-rated superhero film, and I got an R-rated superhero film. You have Patrick Wilson as Night Owl. You have Silk Spectre. Jeffrey D. Morgan's just freaking horrible as the comedian, like just as a bad person. Matthew Good as Ozymandias, and you have Jack Earl Haley as Warshak's Journal. I love that. And yeah, even though it has some omissions, Zack Snyder filmed something that was once thought of to be unfilmable, and I love it. I love that movie. It wasn't until years later, about 4 or 5 years after, that everybody was kind of starting to love Watchmen. That was kind of like a cult classic. Like, yeah, that was a great movie. And I'm like, wow, it's nice seeing it get love, because I felt like I was the only one who loved that movie when it came out. And I didn't read the graphic novel. I enjoy both of them. Definitely read the graphic novel if you haven't, and check out this film. Seriously, there's a lot of the DCEU Marvel stuff now, but if you want a grounded film, superheroes with problems, you want to see Zack Snyder do something really awesome, watch Watchmen. After that, for 2010, yeah, I love The Expendables. I love Inception. That was one of my favorite films, but there is one film that takes the cake, and that's Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy was just amazing. That was my favorite film. Like, that wasn't a superhero film. I was vaguely familiar with Tron 1. My brother rented it one time. The tracking was bad, and I kind of fell asleep. I still fall asleep. It's like Star Trek the Motion Picture, where Tron Legacy is The Empire Strikes Back. I love the aesthetic of this film. Jeff Bridges back. I love him as Flynn, but I like him better as Clue. Yeah, game over, man. End of line. Kevin Flynn, where are you? I love that whole trailer of like, I'm not your father, Sam, but I'm very, very happy to see you. Character of Sam, you have Olivia Wilde as Cora. Oh my God, this movie is just awesome. What makes it is Daft Punk's score. That is an amazing soundtrack. Should have gotten nominated and won. That is like one of the best scores of this past decade. It's used on car commercials, and I love it. It feels real tangible, and I hate to say it, they needed one more Tron. They were so close to making another one, and I don't care what Disney does with Star Wars or whatever the hell they buy out and don't make originally. Make one more Tron. Seriously, it'd be better than half the shit you're putting out right now. Anyway, I love Tron. I even got the video game, and my birthday cake that year was a Tron Legacy cake. So yeah, I love Tron. That was probably my favorite film that year. And it also has IMAX 3D sequences that are great. After that, for 2011, I like some films in 2011, but there's one film that caught me off guard and kind of crept up on you, and that was Drive. Nicholas Winding Refn directed, Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan star. Albert Brooks is a villain with Ron Perlman. I love Drive. Real human being, Kavinsky's Night Call. That movie was just a spectacle. That was amazing. It was transcendent to me, not only as an audience member, but as an aspiring filmmaker. I saw it the year before I went to film school, and that film just I saw that film and like, that's the type of film I want to make. And it was just amazing. I love Drive from beginning to end. Bryan Cranston is great in it as well. Man, Oscar Isaac, twists and turns, a few action scenes. A couple of people thought it was going to be more action-packed, but I love the action that we had. I love how grounded it was. But most of all, I love the story, cinematography, that whole kind of like flawed romance between the driver and Irene in the film. I love Drive. Ask my mom. She's tired of hearing that from me. Every day I talk about Drive. Drive's one of my favorite films of all time. After that, for 2012 was a damn good year for film. You had Silver Linings Playbook. You had Perks of Being a Wallflower, Skyfall. There is The Avengers, Les Mis. But one film takes the cake for me. Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises, I've actually seen the most time in theaters, like 8 or 9 times. I love that. It was the end of Batman before I knew they were going to recast and have a reboot so soon, like 3 years after. Anyway, Christian Bale's Last Time. A conclusion that, yeah, it's a bit flawed, it's a bit rushed, but like Return of the Jedi, is a satisfying conclusion and among one of the best trilogies of all time. I love it. I love Tom Hardy as Bane.
Nobody cared who I was till I put on the mask. You came back to die with your city.
No, I came back to stop you. I love it. Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, the action sequences. Saw it at IMAX at Bob Bullock the first time I went to UT in Austin. I love this movie. Shot on film. The uses of IMAX and the transitions are better, but it's just an emotional conclusion. And I have to say, there's a lot of superhero films. Sure, they're comic books, they're meant to be fun, but I don't feel anything. I don't find anybody relatable. Dark Knight Rises is one of the few films this past decade where I'm like, this still had emotion. I actually felt and gave a damn about something. Such a phenomenal ending. Even though it did fall a bit short from Dark Knight, I was expecting that. Nothing was going to live up to Dark Knight or surpass it, but I must say it's good on its own. And yeah, I love all the Batmans, but Dark Knight Rises was my film of 2012, hands down. I love that film. Just ask some of my friends. I watched that movie like every day for like 3 years until I got burnt out of it. Seriously, I did. Just ask them. After that, for 2013, I loved Star Trek Into Darkness, Before Midnight, but the film that I loved the most that caught me off guard was Man of Steel. A Superman film where he actually punches something, where it's actually good. But what I love about it, it's not your typical Superman. It's not your 20th century Superman. No, Zack Snyder made a 21st century Superman of like, what would the world be like if we discovered a Superman existed? But that's not what I love about the movie. Like Independence Day, I love that it's a first contact alien invasion movie. The beginning on Krypton alone with Jor-El is just amazing, and yeah, that's my favorite part. But you have that whole middle, Clark Kent coming out as Superman, and then eventually fighting General Zod with the Battle of Smallville and Battle Metropolis. I love that. It was like seeing the comics and cartoon come to life. And who could forget Hans Zimmer's wonderful score? Yeah, that was probably my favorite film of 2013. And yeah, it's tied with Dark Knight Rises. I saw it that many times in theaters, even at the Free Student Theater. I saw it back to back. And yeah, I love that movie. Such an awesome movie. It's still my favorite film out of the new DCEU films. After that, for 2014, there's a lot of good films of 2014 I liked as well, like Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, Interstellar, Boyhood. But the film that I love the most, that's probably my favorite, is another sleeper hit called John Wick. That's right, Baba Yaga. People keep asking if I'm back, and I really haven't had an answer. But yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Love that. Keanu Reeves has a certain set of films that are amazing. He takes a bit of a break and then surprises you with an original movie that's just like, whoa, this is awesome. Whether it be Speed, take a bit of a break. Come back for Matrix, take a bit of a break. Come back for Constantine, take a bit of a break. And then John Wick. I love this movie. This is an action film done right. One of the best, most emotionally driven films. I mean, if a man killed my dog, I would be like John Wick and just find them to the ends of the earth. I would. Never mess with a man's dog or his car, especially after his wife just died. Yeah, you really relate to John Wick. You want him to go after these people. You want him to go after them. I love William Dafoe in this. The whole world set up. The nightclub scene with the action, the cinematography, the stunt people and director were also people who worked on the Matrix trilogy. Yeah, John Wick is one of the best action films of the decade. After that, for 2015, I have a lot of films I love in 2015. Terminator Genesis, Mad Max Fury Road is among one of the best. Straight Outta Compton, Creed, Furious 7, but you know what? Mission Impossible Rogue Nation takes the cake for me. I love Rogue Nation. I'm a fan of Mission Impossible, you know that. But Christopher McQuarrie managed to make something that was fun, yet serious. It wasn't kind of goofy and just kind of like one-liner jokes like Ghost Protocol. No, this felt like the first film, even with the intro. I love it. They finally deal with the Syndicate, like the television show, and it continues the cliffhanger left at Ghost Protocol. I love Ilsa Faust. Best Bond girl that's never been in a Bond film. And yeah, spectacular action sequences all the way to the end that leads into Fallout. I love Rogue Nation. The Syndicate is a rogue nation, trained to do what we do. After that, in the year of 2016, you had films like Deadpool, but my favorite was Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Yes, this is probably my favorite Star Wars out of everything Disney has done. I thought The Force Awakens was okay. I liked it less after The Last Jedi. Solo was a pile of garbage. Rogue One was awesome. Despite its kind of fast-pacedness at the beginning, the behind-the-scenes issues, it felt like a bridge between the prequel trilogy and original trilogy, and it felt like the old Star Wars. The effects, the X-Wings, the little nods to the other trilogy. Darth Vader, oh my god, his scenes, only a couple of scenes. He stills with Commander Krennic, and then that whole hallway fight. Jyn Erso kicks ass and takes names. I love Cassian Andor. I love these characters. They're more relatable and three-dimensional than anybody in the sequel trilogy. Rogue One is my favorite film of 2016. After that, for 2017, my favorite film of that year is Logan. Logan was such a good send-off for Hugh Jackman. A rated R Wolverine movie where you actually get to see his freaking claw stab through somebody's skull. The whole relationship with him and Laura, Professor Xavier, is sad. There's stakes. There's parts that feel like freaking Terminator with the X-24 clone. But I love it. James Mangold made a tour de force film. I love the Wolverine, but he really went all neo-Western with this one. But he got back to the core fundamentals of X-Men. It's always been about civil rights issues, oppression, and it's an allegory for the stuff going around with immigration and the border. And it was written before all this stuff in the country. And yeah, I love Logan. Logan is just amazing. Like The Wrestler and Unforgiven before it, this film should have been nominated for Best Picture, and Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart should have been nominated. This is probably one of the finest comic book films and one of the finest films of this decade period. After that, for 2018, is Mission Impossible Fallout. I love Mission Impossible, and Fallout was even better than Rogue Nation. Continued a lot of stuff from it. Didn't have Jeremy Renner, but it did have Ethan Hunt, Ving Rhames back, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson. Christopher McQuarrie becomes the first director to come back after one installment. The use of IMAX, whether it be the Halo jump, the helicopter sequence, Tom Cruise flying a helicopter for real. I love it. Mission Impossible is doing a better job being Bond than James Bond is right now. And it was the best film hands down of last year. I love it. Mission Impossible Fallout. Yeah, when you think the Mission Impossible series is running out of steam, what's done is done when we say it's done. Anyway, that's it for my list. Thank you for watching this long video. My voice is getting tired, but yeah, I would say something I'm excited for 2019, but I'm not excited for anything really. Maybe It Chapter 2, Joker, and John Wick 3. Probably John Wick 3, Parabellum, but yeah, this doesn't look a very good movie year for me personally, but those are my favorite films from each year that have been alive. Yeah, today I'm going to enjoy some Oreo cake for my 28th birthday. But I saw a couple of people doing this video. A couple of people have been asking me what are my favorite movies over the years. And I wanted to share this with all of you out there. Yeah, thank you all for watching. If you want to see more reactions, you can follow me at Fred Film Fanatic on the Stardust app. And yeah, feel free to share your favorite films from each year you've been alive down in the comments. I would love to know, love to start a discussion. This is such a great thing that Sean Chandler and other YouTubers have done. And people who just love movies in general. I love it. So let me know down in the comments below. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Don't forget to hit that bell. And here's some more videos you can enjoy on my channel. Till next time.